Good morning, everyone. Today's theme, make responsible choices. It moves us along in Exodus to dun dun dun, the Ten Commandments. We've been on this story since about August because I remember starting with Joseph and his coat of many colors and how they wound up in Egypt, in the first place. So let's see, the Ten Commandments. I think I've lied, I've cheated, I've certainly coveted at times what my neighbor has. I don't think I haven't murdered anybody yet. Um, I've taken the Lord's name in vain. Um, yep, I've broken just about every one of the commandments, um, but I'm not bragging about that. I'm praising God that He still these are his basic commandments that I haven't followed, and I'm not especially proud of that, but he still loves me and he's still working with me and has a picture of me that I don't have. And I came across this saying, none of us are the worst thing we've ever done. God sees so much more than the worst thing we've ever done. There is a lighthouse at the southern end of the of Sweden's archipelago the islands are out in the Baltic Sea, and there's a lighthouse on Oja Island and a town called Landsort, and this marks the deep water channel that gets through that area of the Baltic Sea. And it's been there like since 1689. Wait a minute, I'm going to share my screen a second and see if I can figure out where this is. So we're talking about in this area right here of the Baltic Sea, and that lighthouse, 1689. It's been there all that time. They added an iron top to it a couple hundred years later, but from 1689, it's been guiding ships. The Ten Commandments have been guiding us a lot longer than that, even. The Israelites needed guidance out there in the desert. They needed to know basic rules for how to live as God's people because they'd been living in captivity and they weren't certain how to be God's people. Um, and according to Craig's sermon a couple weeks ago, this wasn't like a couple hundred people. This was 2 million people out in the desert wandering around. You couldn't communicate complicated rules by mouth, I don't think, to 2,000 people. So to have them just be 10 simple rules to address survival and all this complaining, but also learning to trust God, and as much as we humans can even learn to trust God. And God was faithful to them, and we've seen this with the manna and the water from the rock. And now these simple rules for how to live as God's people. I'm sure today's version of the Ten Commandments, after being reviewed by the legal department, would be much more confusing and much longer. And hence our simplification today of just make responsible choices. We have a national election coming up, and nothing could be more confusing, in my opinion, than complex financial issues on how to run a country, and the foreign policies and the how to stimulate an economy. And even more complicated than that is how to address the social issues of poverty and homelessness and immigration and equality and justice. How are we, the people, going to make a responsible choice for leader of one of the, uh, most influential countries in the world. And to compound the problem, we're not even sure which source of information to go to sometimes to tell us the truth about what people have or haven't done. Um, before going any further down this path, do you remember the song The Sound of Silence, written by Paul Simon, performed by Simon and Garfunkel? Maybe those of you that are younger know it, remember when it came out. And the lyrics have always been very impactful. And I started, for some reason, singing it one afternoon 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was starting to get the ideas for this sermon. And the lyrics spoke to me about how we don't hear people's voices anymore. They might be speaking and we might be listening, but we're not hearing. And there's voices that talk, but no one hears them. And no one hears the silence of the silent crying. And I started thinking about mankind and the time when ultimately all our voices are silenced. And I hope it's not because we couldn't speak and listen to each other. I hope it's not because of our darkness, our hatred of other people, or what might swallow us if we don't make responsible choices. There's warning signs flashing and voices saying, look, you're destroying your earth, this beautiful gift that was given to us. But and I don't want it to be humankind that takes us out. This is kind of a downer. It's like, I hope our silence comes from meteor slams into us and poof, no one is left alone in the silence of our destruction. We can make simple choices to help out our planet. We can buy an electric car, we can choose the right light bulbs, but what about choosing our leaders as well? We need to choose wisely and responsibly those that will protect our earth, those that will protect truth, those that will try to listen to those many voices. And so I'm back to how do we know who that is? How difficult it is to select a leader, and we can't just sit back and go, oh, I'm disenfranchised, I'm not going to participate at all. You have to go and participate. In those voices, we know we read in the Bible, there's hundreds of passages. I looked them up. There's hundreds of passages about false leaders and false voices. From Romans 16, verses 17 to 18, I appeal to you, brothers, to watch for those who cause divisions and create obstacles contrary to the doctrine you have been taught. Avoid them, for such persons do not serve our Lord Christ, but their own appetites, and by smooth talk and flattery deceive the hearts of the naive. I don't know that you'll find anybody that would say, well, all leaders and politicians lie, but and I know that they all spin the truth. They all make things look favorable for them, but the denying of truth and the denying of the science, or spreading untruth about people who were in but now they're out, people who were removed because their opinions differ. And in the corporate world that I still work in, it's like we take entire classes on you can't be have retribution against you because you're the whistleblower and all that. So why would we tolerate that kind of behavior in our leaders either? I'm fascinated by the language that gets used sometimes. And there was a piece that caught my attention a while back, and some of you may have seen this. And I think we've talked about this quote before. It's a famous quote by Dr. Martin Luther King. And the original quote says that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So it was used in a speech, but the speaker rephrased it. The truth is, our nation's arc always bends back towards fairness. Well, there's a fine distinction between the original quote and how it was rephrased. Are we working towards justice, or are we working towards fairness? So I need to read this next section word for word, and this is by a writer by the name of Dan Gregory. At face value, they, and he's talking about the fairness versus justice, may seem interchangeable, but dig just a bit and we realize the discrepancies. In the simplest terms, justice can be defined as what's morally right. Fairness being defined as what is even. And in my own words, we're talking about restorative justice, not punitive justice. I know we've talked about that in previous weeks. And again, at face value, the concept of fairness as evenness sounds appealing, but what it actually implies is those who are already behind will still be behind as you apply things fairly, because we already have an inequality. So, okay, and again, I've got to read it because I'm getting off of what it actually implies is a system where those who are already ahead receive the same as those who are already behind, or that any benefit to those who have been disenfranchised by our systems should be evenly applied to those who have been advanced by our current systems. Fairness retains the status quo. So fairness, while it sounds very good, things the way they are. And in light of the inequities that our history has gotten to in the current day, aiming towards evenness dismisses the concerns of those who are already behind. Justice, on the other hand, requires a recalibration, identifying gaps, weaknesses, and shortfallings in the current system to try to right and restore some sense of balance for everyone. A just society is one where decisions are made based on circumstances. Justice is inherently disruptive and responsive. It is transformative as it calls into examination truth-telling and a shift from where we have been into a more right space. And if you want to extend that to Christianity, the Christian scriptures don't speak of fairness, they speak of justice. The scriptural story underlying it is a story of justice. And we need to do justice. We need to take action that lifts up the poor, the orphan and the widow, and the outcast and the disenfranchised, and to admonish the proud and rich and powerful and well-connected. Because to do justice in the scriptural sense is to prioritize the needs of some, because the broader focus, cultural focus, we focus on what's fair in the broader sense. And I know that this election, no matter who wins, it could be another very dividing factor in our country instead of unifying factor. But let's choose justice. God wants us to choose truth and justice. And he wants all peoples, leaders and followers, to be honest with themselves and honest with each other. You know, that's one of the basic commandments. And we should be electing leaders that try to unify us instead of voices that try to divide us. And so I'm going to leave you today with a reading of the Ten Commandments. We didn't really do the story of Moses bringing them down from the mountain on the stone tablets. But I felt in light of what our nation is facing, that those were the words that needed to be said this morning. So the commandments I leave you with: I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land of the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servants, or his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. When the people saw the thunder and lightning, and heard the trumpet, and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself, and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us, or we will die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. God has come to test you, so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning. And to these commandments, we add Jesus' words from Matthew 22. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. My hope today is that we all find a way in our lives to use the guiding principles of the Ten Commandments and the scriptures to direct our lives to a good path, and to hold those commandments up, and work towards justice, and justice above just fairness, and that we demand right behavior from those who lead us as a country as well. I pray for all of you today that that God will be with you as you make choices in your life, both big and small, and that you will feel his guiding presence as you make important choices in your lives. Thank you for listening today. And as we move forward into the part of our service that we partake of our communion as we do the first Sunday of each month, I pray that whatever is holding you back from a full relationship with God, that you're able to bring that to the table and leave it and take away his peace and love and blessings in your life.